I am Mistress Sabine Lefebvre, and I am the current Kingdom Exchequer. This is the gate class for events. Again, I'm Mistress Sabine, mundanely Mariah Slater. I can be reached at, or the Kingdom Exchequer in general, whoever that is, can be reached at the email address located at the bottom of this. So who is this class for? Basically, this class is for branch regional or deputy exchequers, branch regional or deputy seneschals, event stewards for upcoming events, gate coordinators for upcoming events, or pretty much any person interested in working gate or the gate functions of events. So this is a pretty open class for anybody that may be interested in gate and how that runs and how it operates for our various events. Resources that are available to either branch exchequers or gate coordinators for events are located on the sca.org website and the ansteorra.org website. And we will look at a few of the documents that are available on those sites as we go through the presentation. So an event bid has been awarded. That's usually how most events start, is the group gets together and they decide to put in an event bid for either a kingdom event, or someone within your group has put together a bid to autocrat your standard local event. So as Exchequer, after that event's been awarded, first question is, okay, where do I go from here? What do I do now? First thing I would suggest is to determine if you're going to use PayPal for your event pre-registration. The reason I say that is PayPal takes a little bit of effort on the back end. It's a very nice tool to have for us to use for our events because it does help us start to see some numbers of attendance for our events ahead of the actual event. And making that determination of using that feature early allows you time to get all the necessary information compiled, get the form filled out to the PayPal deputy, all the signatures in place, and then it allows you ample amount of time to get the link for that pre-registration posted in whatever outlets you choose to do that. And I would suggest trying to make use of posting that in as many locations as you can. If you have an event announcement that's going out via Ansteorra Announce or any of the other email formats, put the link in there. If you have a Facebook page for your event, put the link in there. If you make a post on the Kingdom Facebook page, put the link in there. You know, anywhere that you have an opportunity to put that pre-registration PayPal link in your event announcements, I would do so, because that's going to just assist you in allowing the people who want to attend to kind of pay in advance. So the document that you would need to use to get PayPal set up for your event is actually located in the document section for the Office of the Exchequer. And it's under documents. At this time, we're looking at possibly moving it over to the event section or in another section where it's not so buried. So the PayPal deputy and I have been discussing that. Currently, it is located at the bottom of the documents page, the Ansteorra and PayPal request. And if you click on that, pretty basic, you know, name of event, date of your event, who your pre-registration coordinator is, when you want your pre-reg to open, when you want it to close, all your pricing. If you have any additional information, because this just talks about currently, you know, here's all your registration, and then here's fees, and then if you have any additional fees or costs, and then the Exchequer information. So this has all of the directions for related to PayPal and filling out the form. The PayPal deputy is very responsive. If you have any questions, reach out to her, and she will be more than happy to help you get your event set up on PayPal. So that is pretty much the basics of PayPal. I will let everyone know that, again, PayPal does require some effort on the back end. So if your event, and this does mention it on there, you want to leave enough time for your event registration to close, because the PayPal deputy needs to make sure all the invoices are paid, and then be able to print the roster to send to your group several days ahead of your event. So I know a lot of people have asked why PayPal registration will close a week to week and a half before the event. It's because of that background manual work that needs to be done in sending out the invoices, making sure the invoices are paid, because each person is given, I believe, up to 3 days to pay their invoice. So that's why the cutoff date has to be backed off of the event date several days, is to make sure that there's plenty time to do all the background functions. And again, if you have any questions about PayPal deputy is more than happy to answer those. So that would be one of my first steps, is talking with your group, your the autocrats, the seneschal financial committee, to determine if they want to use PayPal for the event, and if they are willing to accept the associated fees associated with that. So usually a lot of times the gate responsibilities for smaller groups to get put onto the branch treasurer. The branch treasurer is not required to run gate functions. However, they become the default person if they don't delegate that responsibility to someone else. If they don't have a gate coordinator, or a gate coordinator isn't designated through either the volunteering for the event, or the staff setup of the event, etc., they become the default person. And unfortunately, the branch treasurer, since gate is a financial responsibility, they become, of course, the party that's responsible to getting problems fixed. The branch treasurer also handles the financial aspect of gate, such as writing checks, reports, etc. So again, it's a financial thing, so they are ultimately responsible for making sure the financial function of the group performs properly. There are non-treasurer gate coordinators mentioned in the previous slide. Some groups prefer to have actual gate coordinators, someone who's going to be in charge of running gated events and taking that responsibility, some of that responsibility off the actual branch exchequer. If you do have a non-treasurer gate coordinator, they must be a paid member over the age of 18. That's the only, I guess, restriction or requirement I've seen for someone to actually be a gate coordinator for an event. If you have a blue card, you are a paid member. Whether you're the actual sustaining member, or you're part of, you're part of the family. So steps leading up to the event, kind of going back to that, you want to advertise the link for PayPal if you're using pre-registration as soon as the link is established. I would advertise often and across any outlet I could find if I was using PayPal, just to make sure that it's visible, people have access to it, and they know that they can pre-register. If you are if you are the person that is going to be in charge of gate, whether you're the branch treasurer or the gate coordinator, I would start asking for volunteers to sit your gate shifts and start to circulate a sign-up sheet about a month out. You could even start trying to ask for volunteers as soon as you know when the event's going to be held, etc. It doesn't hurt to start asking soon, soon and often, to try and get those gate shifts filled. You want to coordinate or teach a gate class. I would say probably a week to a month out from your event. And the reason I say a week to a month is because if you teach it too far out from the event, there may be things that someone might forget. The information, if you teach it close, if it gets taught closer to the event, of course, the information is just fresher. The forms are going to be the most current forms, etc. Gate class is not required for any kind of warranting status. In my local group, the branch exchequer would basically teach a gate class about 2 weeks out from our annual event every year. Anybody that signed up to sit gate, they would ask to attend this class. They try and make it on a date and a time. Usually it was our normal meeting time. They would take a portion of it to get the most attendance. And they would just walk through the steps of this is what you would do to sit gate. And then we would have some of our members, we'd set the table up, like the table would be set up if people were coming to gate, and we would actually basically role play. We would role play. We'd have some people sit behind the table. We'd have other members come up and sign in, and then we would swap out, and so that everybody was comfortable with the gate process. So a gate class doesn't have to be this, structured type of thing for your local group. It's more to get those people comfortable with assisting the attendees of, I know we use the word gating in to the event. So if as a branch treasurer or even a gate coordinator, if you feel comfortable teaching that type of class to just your local group so that they know how everything goes, I don't foresee a problem with that. If you're not comfortable doing that, reach out to your regional or reach out to the kingdom, and they can teach, we can come in and teach something a little bit more like this. It's not going to necessarily give them that hands-on of actually assisting people with gating into an event, but we can at least run through the basics. The other things that you'll need to do is to print the gate sign-in sheets a few days to a week out of the event. Also print any of your necessary waivers. Print relevant signage for gate, i.e., the bullying policy that we now need to post at gate. And then speak with the event steward about site tokens and flyers and those kind of things about a week out from your event. So basically about a week from your event, you are in the process of coordinating and gathering all the things that you need to have at the table to conduct gate. And so I usually wait till about a week out. There's no need to do it so far in advance. And you also, and in the gate sign-in sheets, you're also not going to get that roster from PayPal if you use it for pre-registration until about a week or so out from your event. So that's kind of a good trigger for you to go ahead and get all the other paperwork ready for gate. And some groups, and our group here did have kind of, is just basically a checklist of what do we need, what needs to happen so that gate functions smoothly at an event. And that would also make your life a little bit easier if you had a checklist, because then you would know exactly where you're at and what you still had left to do. My local group here, we even have a gate handbook. So it's kind of part of it is information that's for whoever is in charge of gate for the event, either the branch treasurer or the gate coordinator. And then another section of it is notes for the people sitting gate shifts to have with them at the table. So yes, if your group has already developed some type of handbook for gate, that's awesome. That is a very helpful tool. one of the things that is crucial for a smooth gait is coordinating. And as a gait coordinator, and I'm going to just use the word gait coordinator, and that can be, like I said, either the actual branch treasurer or someone who's designated as the gait coordinator, just to kind of simplify things. So I'm going to use that as the person who's coordinating the gait function of your event. And so they need to coordinate people, places, things, and money. So one of the crucial parts for gait is people. If we don't have people volunteering to set a gait shift, it makes running gait very difficult. So some of the things that need to be considered with coordinating people is to determine the hours of operation for your gait. And that needs to be coordinated with the event steward or stewards, because if you're, so now we're doing mostly day events, you may determine that you're only going to run gait for 4 hours. Site opens at 8, you're going to be done with your gait by noon. Or you may decide, we'd like to leave it open a little bit longer. So that's something to coordinate with them, is to determine the hours of operation for that gait based on the event schedule and hours of operation for the general event. Once you have determined the hours of operation, you can then determine your gait shift lengths. Most groups will do a 2-hour shift. Some may do a little bit longer if they're running a shorter gait time, and they've decided instead of doing 4 hours, maybe they're doing 5 hours, so they may run that gait shift to 2.5. That's something that needs to be worked out between the gait coordinator and the event stewards, just to determine the best kind of functionality for your particular event. Some of those gait hours may be on a Friday night, as we've had at events in the past, and then some of those gait hours may be Saturday morning. So again, determining how long you're going to leave that gate open for however many days your event is being held. You need to plan for at least 2 people to sit gait for each shift. Just like we need 2 signatories on our checks for our accounts, we need 2 people at gate for each shift at all times. This is a safety measure and to make sure that you have oversight, and having 2 people there gives you that oversight. And the best practice is to have at least 1 person per shift attend a gait class before the event. Places, coordinating places. Many of our branches will host their events in the same locations year after year. So if you are the gait coordinator, discuss the location for gait with the event steward. There may be, you want to make sure that your gate's going to be easily accessible, depending on what activities you have going on for that event. That may have some bearing on where you want to set up the actual table for gait. And then, of course, logistic-wise, depending on the type of event you're running, you might need to orientate and determine how many stations are needed for that event. If it's a local event, 1 table may work just fine. If it's a kingdom event, such as coronation or crown tournament, where you're going to have a influx of a lot more people in a short amount of time, you may want to consider a larger table with more than 1 station, meaning like more than 1 sign-in book, more than 1 cash box. So just kind of discuss those logistics with the event steward to see what might work best to handle your event and what activities you have planned for that event. And of course, depending on how many stations or books and cash boxes you need to have will also then affect the coordination of the people that you will need to set the gate shifts. Any questions on people and places?
Yes, ma'am. I know that when it comes to other functions like being a signer on the account, you can't have two people from the same household. Would that also apply with sitting gate? Can two people from the same household sit gate together?
No.
Okay, that's what I
If,
thought.
yeah, no relations can sit gate at the same time. So basically my husband and myself cannot sit the same gate shift. And if it's also someone living in the same house as you, I would advise that you not sit them together as well. So I would use the same rules you would with signatories on accounts. Again, we're just trying to develop a method of checks and balances. Our people are honest and chivalrous, and they do the right thing. But we always just want to make sure that we have that process built in so that we can say we have processes in place to eliminate any illusions of impropriety with the money. So good question. So things, as gate coordinator, you coordinate some things as well. Those mainly being items for the gate setup. Whether that's, you want to make sure that you have a table and chairs. If you are going to be running and there are events that may run into the evening hours, you want to make sure there's proper lighting. If your gate is going to be in an outside location, do they have shelter either from sun or do they have shelter from rain? Make sure that they have the kind of the items they need to be able to comfortably handle the gate for you, running the gate for you. Functionality, things you need to actually conduct the functions of gate, whether that's the gate handbook that we kind of talked about a little bit earlier. And in that handbook, that can be things like your comp list. It could be map of the site. It could be information on burn ban. It can be anything in that handbook that is relevant for your gate staff to know to run the actual function of gate. Of course, your forms such as your sign-in sheets, your waivers, etc., pins, clipboards, binders, etc., anything that you feel is necessary to have, for the function. Accountability, that is in regards to your monies. You need to have a money box. You should have some drop / count sheets, envelopes, waivers. Again, waivers are kind of both a function of gate and an accountability measure. And then another thing that you could coordinate is what we term niceties. If you want to provide some snacks or beverages for your gate staff, just as a kind of thank you for them volunteering to set your gate shifts if you have a few things for them. I know sometimes that can really go a long way in getting some of your volunteers, and then also in just can go a long way in just telling them that you appreciate them taking time out of their event to set a gate shift for you. And then of course the big thing, coordinating money. For any gate, we need a gate seed, and that's the monies that we basically start the cash box with at the beginning of the event. So you need to determine who will be responsible for obtaining the gate seed funds and make the check payable to them. No checks to cash, just no checks to cash. If you are going to be the person responsible for obtaining the gate seed funds as either gate coordinator or the branch treasurer, make sure that that check is signed by 2 other people, not yourself if you are the person receiving the check. My local branch, a lot of times, if the initial person sitting one of the persons sitting the initial gate shift, if they are reliable enough, a lot of times that person will be responsible, or we ask that person if they're willing to be responsible for getting the gate seed money. So that takes a little bit of the responsibility off of the gate coordinator of having to obtain those funds. And it might be a best practice to have the person complete a check request form for your records, just so that you have a record of this person receiving those gate seed funds. I would handle it very similar to what you would handle a advance for a feast. They would fill out the form, you'd give them the check. When the gate seed is deposited back into the account after the event, then you would clear out that liability. So again, just to kind of creates a little bit of a paper trail of why that check was written and who that check was written to. It never hurts to have some traceability. Money drops. Determine the interval at which you will make drops, and always have 2 people count the money being dropped and secure it in a designated location. This is where having those count sheets or drop sheets come in handy, because it allows one person to record the items being dropped. The second person can verify the items being dropped. They both sign that. They put that form in the envelope, sign and seal the envelope, and make the drop. Some groups set that up to where at the end of every shift, they're making a drop and taking the cash box back down to the amount of the gate seed. Some groups determine that when the cash box hits a certain amount of money, they want to make a drop. So that is not a hard rule for any group. It's always best to have that determined ahead of time so that you kind of know when you're going to be making that drop. And so your gate staff can kind of coordinate with you as well if they feel that the cash box, has reached that designated dollar amount. They can have someone come in and make a drop and get some of those funds secured. No funds may be dispersed from the gate box. So if someone needs to get, there's feast happening and they need to make an emergency run to the local store to get something for the feast, they'll need to pay for it and then be reimbursed for it. You cannot pay for anything out of the gate box. And then at the end of the event, you want to deposit the gate seed funds separate from the other event income, and write individual check numbers on the deposit slip. I know that that takes some time depending on how large the event is, but having those individual check numbers on the deposit slip is a good way to actually keep track of how many checks you received. If you have an issue with one of the checks not clearing. I also had a question from an auditor on one event asking about specifically some of the checks, and they had just written a total amount for the number of checks received for the event and didn't actually itemize them out based on check number and dollar amount. And so that was a little problematic. So just write those individual check numbers and amounts on your deposit slips. Some people have even advocated for depositing, basically doing 3 deposits, depositing the gate seed, of course, separate so you can clear out that liability, depositing your cash as one deposit, and then depositing your checks as another deposit. I don't see any issue with depositing cash and checks on the same deposit slip, as long as you're writing out the individual check numbers. But gate seed is not part of your event income, so that does need to be a separate deposit. So actual gate operations. At least one paid adult member of the SCA must be present and in charge anywhere SCA money is collected. That is directly from the society financial policy. So one person sitting at gate must be a paid adult member. The other thing is that's been asked over the years was whether or not minors could sit gate shifts. They can assist with gate collecting funds or overseeing the sign-in sheets or handing out site tokens, as long as there is an individual permitted to serve as an officer. Again, that one paid adult member. If you are a paid adult member, you pretty much are eligible to serve as an officer in the SCA. So if you have a minor who would like to volunteer to sit gate, just make sure that they are paired up with an adult paid member that is not related to them or in the same household as them, and you're fine. Here's where that says related persons are not permitted to solely control gate income. So therefore related persons are not permitted to sit gate together, especially if it's just the two of them. If you're running, you know, a two station, so I know at some crowns and even maybe at some coronations where they've had two tables set up and they've had two different sign-in books and two different money boxes. You could set one of the persons at one table with someone else that's not related to them, and then you could set the other relation at the other table with another person. So you've kind of split them up. They're not sitting gate together. They're just sitting gate at the same time with someone else if you're running stations like that. So the gate registration that we now have, the gate sign-in sheet, we use a standardized form that's available on the Kingdom website, and we'll actually talk about that here in just a little bit. And then the best practice, the practice that was told to me from the very time I started working in the Exchequer and started sitting gate shifts, is to store the gate sign-in sheets and the cash box in different locations. So if you're closing gate down for the night, it's a multi-day event, you want the gate sheets to go with one person and the cash box to go with another person. Or even at the end of your event, and you're still on site, but you haven't left, store the gate sheets somewhere else, take the cash box and secure it in a location. And the reason for that is weather, loss, or theft. If you have the gate sheets and the cash box goes missing, you can use the gate sheets to determine how much cash has been lost to file any kind of documentation. Or if you have the cash box and the gate sheets go missing, you can kind of interpolate from how much cash has been collected, what your attendance for the event might have been. So that's why storing those separately is a best practice. So let's talk a little bit about the gate sheets, and we'll actually look at one here in just a few moments. There are several columns that the attendee will complete. The gate sheets have recently been revised. In the past, there's been a column for branch. That column now is for contact information due to the society flow down of needing to have the availability for contact tracing during COVID. If when you log into the website and you're not seeing that form with the new revision date, you might want to clear your browser history or some other things. If that still doesn't work for you, if you're still having issues, you're more than welcome to reach out to me, and I will be more than happy to send you through email a copy of that new sign-in sheet form. So after the attendee has completed all the columns that they will fill in, you need to check their membership if they don't have, or ask them to sign a waiver. If you are establishing a family max, you'll want to designate if the attendee is part of a family max. Then you'll check if NMR was collected, non-member registration, and you'll make notation of the appropriate money that you are taking in for site and feast, and notate what their method of payment was. So for any person that's not a paid member of the SCA, there is an additional $5 fee tacked on to their site fee. NMR is collected and forwarded to society. So there is none of the NMR that is kept at a local or kingdom level. It is all sent to society. It's part of the funds that I believe society uses for their budget and their and our corporate officers, I believe. So it's part of their revenue stream. And then one of the things that came about from one of our local gate classes as a best practice is if you have a person that's using a check to pay for multiple people, or if you have several people that are part of a family max, over in the margins of the gate sheet to kind of put a bracket at the first person that's in that group down to the last person in that group. So it assists anybody who's looking at those gate sheets to kind of immediately know that these people are together. And it's come in hand very much in regards to family max, at least for us here on a local level, and kind of grouping those people together. I know there's been some questions regarding acceptable proof of membership. As always, a blue card in physical form presented directly to gate at the event is acceptable. A photo of the blue card shown at gate is also acceptable. Make a printout of proof of membership. You can actually go on the sca.org website and print a proof of your membership. And now they also have a verification of membership through an online portal. So there are several ways for someone to show gate that they are a member of the SCA. Things you want to verify, of course, in any of these methods is expiration date and whether or not they have signed the waiver. Of course, if it's a blue card means that they have a signed waiver on file at society. I did last night look at the online portal that you can use to show membership. It has a check mark next to something that says, I think it says waiver down at the bottom. So if the waiver is on file at society, it has a little check mark. I honestly haven't needed to print out my proof of membership, so I don't know if that also shows that the waiver has been signed and is on file. Again, best practice, if you're not certain that the person has a signed waiver on file at society, doesn't hurt to just ask them kindly to sign the on-site waiver. Most people are not going to make, hopefully won't make a big fuss about that. I know there's also been some question back and forth on equestrian waivers. I have not been in attendance at a lot of events with equestrian, but I believe that the equestrian waiver needs to be signed by everyone, no matter if they have a blue card or not, or if they've signed the waiver on file at society. That's my understanding. Of course, if you are planning to have equestrian at your event, that's something you'll want to verify to know if that waiver is something that you will need to print out to have at gate. So additional waivers there in regards to equestrian. Family max. Family max is a defined limit any family should pay to attend an event. Family max is not defined at the society level. Family max is currently not used at the kingdom level. As per our kingdom law, attendees under the age of 17 years of age and under are free of charge for recurring kingdom events. So events such as crown, coronation, kingdom ANS, things of that nature, anything that's a recurring kingdom event, basically anyone under the age of 17 is free. So there's really no need for us to utilize a family max at a kingdom level. Family match, you should be determined during the event bid process. So when they're putting in an event bid and they're determining the site fee and any other fees, family max should be considered at that time. And if you do have a family max, I would make sure that it's clear in all your advertising and at gate. That's honestly one of the things I find most difficult in doing a gate class is trying to explain family max. I don't know what it is about family max, but it is one of the more difficult concepts to explain and to actually implement at gate, in my opinion. And then the non-member search or non-member registration, the NMR, is applied on top of the family cap to all non-member adults included in the family max. So if you have 3 adults in that family max, then and they're all non-members, the non-member registration charge gets applied to the top of that for those 3 members. And then after the event, you want to deposit your gate monies into an SCA account within 5 business days of the event close. You want to complete the event report form located on the Kingdom website. The event report plus your applicable non-member registration and profit splits, if it's for a Kingdom event, are due to the NMR deputy by the 10th business day after the event closes. I know for some people, for some groups, that's a very quick turnaround. If you're going to be a few days late, reach out to the NMR deputy and let them know that you're in the process of completing the event report and you may be just a day or 2 late. Let them know when you're expected to get that to them. The reason for that is the NMR deputy has a report that gets sent to me on a monthly basis, which I then forward to corporate with a check to pay for the non-member registration for any events that are held during that month. So that's the reason for the quick turnaround in Kingdom for those event reports. And then process any remaining event expenses as soon after the event as possible. Again, because of that 10-day business turn, you want to try and wrap up your event report as quickly as possible. One of the best practices that I've seen is to set a deadline of the Monday after the event for all check requests to be submitted. So that way they can get any expenses that may have occurred during the actual event time. Say again, like a fee steward or one of the other persons needed to go off site to get something for the event. It gives them till that Monday to get that check request to you so that you can then put that expense into the event report and get it completed on time. And then another good process is to have a post-event debrief or meeting to discuss any problems and solutions that occurred. Doesn't necessarily have to be specific to gate. It may just be in general for the event to assist with planning for the next event. So say if somebody's setting a gate shift, came up with a good solution for maybe making the lighting better or handling a certain situation a little bit better, having a post-event meeting can be very beneficial to also helping to update some of those gate handbooks that you're all developing. So what I would like to do now is just kind of show go back to the resources and kind of look at the SCA website and then the Kingdom website and talk a little bit about the forms. But if you have questions while I'm working on this, please feel free to ask them.
Hi. My
Hello.
question is in regards to events that are co-hosted between 2 different groups. And one group is heading up the gate responsibilities. to what extent does the other group need to also submit reports or paperwork? If you're not the group leading the gate duties?
If you're not the group leading the gate duties, I believe that the responsibility falls onto the group that's actually handling those event duty or that gate duty, to fill out the event report. They may, of course, request assistance for information, but if they're the ones that are going to be in charge of the financial side of the event, then they will need to be the ones submitting the event report and the
Okay.
non-member registration check and any profit split checks.
Okay, so the other group does not need to submit any type of event report, even if it's one that doesn't contain financial stuff? Yeah, because like I said, I understand the financial and it should all go through one group and they're handling it and including reimbursements and all that. But
Mhm.
my curiosity was the group that's not handling it, what does that Exchequer have as a responsibility to their upline to submit, if anything, just for having,
Nothing,
Yeah,
their group
nothing.
being part of this event?
nothing.
Nothing.
Okay.
And that's kind of what it's like, it falls to, since the event report, at least our version of the event report is pretty much only deals with the financials.
Right.
I would
The
ask for
NMR
any,
deputy's only going to want that one report and there, because that's what they deal with. And so whoever's taking responsibility for that would fill that out. I'm not saying there aren't going to be additional reports from maybe the seneschal or, the marshals in charge and that kind of thing. But for this event report that deals with the financials, it would be whoever the responsibility of the financial portion of running the event would be. And what I've seen on some event reports is whoever's responsible for it, like you said, they handle all the expenses, etc. Is they'll do the event report, they'll take care of all the money side of it. And then you'll see, of course, the transfer out to the co-hosting group for the profit split as part
Gotcha.
of the event report information. So on the SCA.org website, there is this handy dandy document library. It can be accessed from the very top right corner. It has a lot of documents for the various offices within the SCA. There's newsletters, of course, corporate documents, insurance, membership forms, and then there's the waiver forms. So underneath the waiver forms is the adult waiver. So this would be the form that you would download to have at gate for all of those who do not have blue cards, whether they have a white card or they're non-members. They will need to sign a waiver when they come on site. And so that is a single one. There's a roster style as well. And I believe this is probably the one that is most people have probably seen at our events. It's the one where it says, that I, hold the SCA not responsible, blah, blah, blah. And then the person prints their name and signs their name. So this is the one most people are probably familiar with seeing at gate, is this roster style consent to participate for the adults. And then if your event is going to have equestrian activities, here is the adult equestrian waivers. And then there's an equestrian waiver policy clarification. So again, if your group is going to have equestrian activities, I highly suggest reading reading the clarification and then determining if the waiver is therefore necessary. In regards to minors, so these are the minor waiver forms. And this is what is typically seen at the gates at events in Ansteorra, is this form here where the parent fills out the minor's name, and then down at the bottom, they again print the minor's name, give some information about the minor, and then they sign on behalf of that minor. So this is the form most people are familiar with seeing when they come to gate in Ansteorra. If they are going to allow their minor to attend with another person that's not their parent or guardian, there are some additional forms that will need to be completed. One being this medical authorization, and it has to be notarized. So if parents are going to send their minor with someone else, they'll need to have this completed before the event and sent with the person being responsible for their child. And then there's another form if, say there's a family with several children, if you wanted to have a few of these on hand so they didn't have to fill out, say if they have four children, they wouldn't have to fill out 4 of those other documents. This is for multiple families. So if you wanted to have a few of those on hand, it wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. So that's where the waiver forms and the minor forms are located. Question?
If there are youth martial activities, going on at the event and children are participating in that, do they need to have anything else?
If their parent or guardian is there, and when they gate into the event and their parent signs the minor, that minor waiver form, at least from gate standpoint, we don't need to have anything else.
Okay.
The marshals running the youth martial ed activities, they may request something else. But for us at gate, we are mainly interested in the minor waiver forms. So the STA.org website is where you will go to get your waiver forms. And then for the actual other event forms or reports, those are located on the Kingdom of Ansteorra webpage. We've already talked about where the PayPal form is located. Under routine reports, that's where the check request form is located. So if anybody wants to submit a check request for reimbursement for anything going on with your event, you can either provide them one or provide them a direction on where to go to obtain a check request form. And then under event reports, there is a PDF that lists the gate forms and reports. I will tell you that that list is probably very dated. I'm not saying that there isn't good information there, but it was last done in 2015, and I have not updated it. But you can look at it and see what forms and reports that it says are as a good starting place. And as you can tell, this also still says NMS. So there's a little, there was questions earlier about NMR. And so here's just a little, see, dated as well, because it says current newsletter, and we no longer receive paper copies of newsletters. So it's been a while since we've updated some of these sheets. Down here, it does say, no NMS on free site fees. So if your group would like to submit a bid for a Kingdom event, there's a Google form or a Excel form on this page to assist with submitting a event bid for the Kingdom events. This is the event report form in Excel. Here are some gate count sheets. There's So this is for your actual event report form, and then there's some additional gate count sheets. So if you wanted to print several of these out for your shift changes, for your drops, etc., here's an already ready-made form for you. And this form was updated in November of 2017. And it now has a place for prepaid income, which is your PayPal income. It gets put here. So, and this is the new gate sign-in sheet. You want to look for it to say revised on June 28th, 2021 on the form to know that it's the one you need. And then also, like, it has contact information, and for that contact information, they can provide an email or a phone, or if they really want to provide their street address, their mailing address, they can. We just need some method to contact them in case of direction from health department authorities for contact tracing. The nice thing about this gate form is it's set up to where you can actually enter the information on this first page. So if you enter information about the event, you can actually, so and right now we don't have any fees. So you can basically enter the information here. If you have any other fees, like if you're charging for, like you have RV slots or you have cabins or anything like that, you can put that information in here. And then make any other kind of notation here. Like, so you could put, say it's, $10 and say it's for a, a cabin bed, whatever information you want to list there. If your event has a family max, you can, that can be set up here. Looks like there's, I didn't establish these forms, so there's some ways to, since 17 and under for Kingdom events is free, it's setting my family max at 1 adult. And then you can see, you can set it to print as many pages as you would like, depending on, how many you think you need for your normal event attendance. Each page has 10 spaces. So based on, however many you normally have, printing 12 pages only allows you about 120. And that's if you don't make any mistakes, or some people will actually draw a line when they have shift changes on the books and notate when a shift change happens. So sometimes that takes up lines. So you can set however many pages you would like to print. And you can also set how many books. So if you're running more than one station, say like this, I was setting this up for coordination and you're running more than one station, so you want to have more than one book, you can tell how many books that's for. So once you get all of that entered into that page, if you flip over to the actual sheet, you can see that it's filled in the event name, who the checks need to be payable to, the site fee. It already puts in any, it says that the non-member price is 10, a member price is 5, the date of the event, if there's any family max. Over here in other is where it shows a cabin bed fee. If somebody has a cabin, it tells you, it doesn't fill in the individual pages, but it'll fill in the total number of pages that you're printing and whether or not this is book 1 or book 2. So it's kind of nice because you don't have to enter that information into every single page. You can just enter it on this main sheet and it'll fill in the other pages for you. So that's the gate sign-in sheet, the gate form. And that covers pretty much gate and the forms. And so I'm going to open it up to see if anybody has any questions.
How is the PayPal funds transferred to the barony?
Okay, good question. So if you use PayPal for pre-registration for your event, at the close of that event, so when the event closes for pre-registration, the PayPal deputy will transfer the funds from PayPal to the actual bank account for PayPal, and then they will cut a check from that bank account to whatever group event that it is. So like I actually don't know who has an event. So they cut a check from an SCA account to you after they transferred the funds to PayPal. So you'll see a check coming from an account that says Kingdom of Ansteorra PayPal. So
Will
So
it
it's a
be
check.
in time to produce all these reports?
I believe it should be. I think the other reason for closing, having it close when it does the week to week and a half prior to the event is so that she can process all of this and get it to the group for their event reports. If you have any questions regarding that, we can definitely follow up with her on how long it takes her to process that. There have been a few hoops added to that. So, which will delay her process a little bit. But I think we can still be within the time frame everybody needs to do their event reports.
Well, there's a lot
if
of hoops
not-
for everything.
Huh?
There's a lot of hoops for everything.
There is, and I over the last 6 months have been learning more and more of those hoops. And I will say this because there have been, and that's why I'm saying if you think you're going to be late or you're having some difficulty, reach out to the NMR deputy and say, hey, we're working on the reports. This is where I am. It's going to be a little late. Also, if it's mainly just mailing a signed hard copy and a check, if that's kind of the holdup, send the report to her electronically and tell her, hey, here's the report. It's completed. I'm in the process of getting signatures and checks signed, and I'll get them in the mail to you as soon as possible.
Mm.
Just have that open line of communication, because we do understand that things happen, and especially right now, trying to coordinate signatures on checks or signatures on reports can be problematic. So if you, again, just give her a heads up and go ahead and send an electronic version of that report, it kind of means that you're being proactive and you're not getting the email from her that says, hey, your report was due. And she's very appreciative of that. She has no problem if the group, sends her an email that just kind of gives her a status of what's going on. She's very appreciative of that. So, did I answer all your questions?
Mhm.
Awesome. Okay. I see Roberta.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. At an event, can the seneschal sit at a gate shift?
I don't foresee an issue with that. I mean, they're a paid adult member of the SCA that is
Because we used to have it to where, in order to have the 1 degree of separation, is to not have the reeve or the seneschal sit at the gate, I can understand the reeve because they're going to have to be, the ones to do all the money and stuff. So it's always good to still have that, but I was
Right.
always
And-
wondering about that. If
Yeah,
there was
and-
a hard,
Mm-mm.
fast rule.
Not,
on the-
not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
And I think because they're not setting gate alone.
Yeah.
There's another person sitting with them for
Mm-hmm.
that oversight. Same thing with a branch treasurer setting a gate shift. You have someone else there that is working that shift with you. So you have that system of checks and balances in place. And then also when you are doing your final gate count and making that deposit, you have someone else, even though as branch treasurer, you're the one making the deposit, you still have someone else there verifying, doing that final count with you, and both of you are signing off on a gate, a count sheet that says this is the amount of funds that have been raised, have been generated from this event. This is the amount of funds that's going to be deposited. And so you have those checks and balances and gates in place to
Okay.
cover that.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Especially for some of the smaller groups, sometimes getting volunteers to set gate shifts can be problematic. And so
We're having it right now, so.
Yeah,
and we're,
so immediately eliminating any of your officers, or a portion of your officers can put you in a difficult situation. And I would suggest that if you are having, I know some of the groups in the different regions, if you're having a little bit of difficulty finding volunteers to sit gate, not having, maybe a large group, I don't think it's a problem to, post to the event page that says, hey, if you're going to be at our event and have a couple of hours to spare, would you be, you could volunteer to sit gate, and kind of plug that a little bit.
yeah,
I know we've done that for some of our local events, because a lot of especially if it's your event, you have a lot of your officers doing other things, like your Earl Marshal is in charge of your marshalate activities. Your Seneschal is almost being a co-steward in some ways to the event steward. And so you have all these people in your group being pulled in different directions, and trying to get those gate shifts filled internally is sometimes a little difficult.
yeah. I wish there was an easy, permanent,
Yeah.
fix to
Yeah.
that, but it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, as the Ravensford Exchequer, I am going to sit gate, but I am going to purposely not handle money, because I don't think it's ethical for me to handle money at gate and then count it at the end of the gate shift. You know what I mean?
And yeah, and there's a lot of branch treasurers that feel that same way. They're like, I will sit gate, but I'll do the book. I won't do the money box, but I'll do the book. Because that just makes them feel more comfortable. There's no rule or guideline against them running the cash box, but again, sometimes it's an individual comfort level. And I think that's a good compromise to give another
Layer of accountability.
yeah, another layer, putting another
It's-
layer in that of kind of moving yourself away from actually handling the cash during the
Right.
gate shift.
Right. It's also the reason that I would not do the gate coordinator as being the exchequer. I would try to find someone to do gate coordinator. Now, we do have one for Ravenfort's event next week. So, but I've been doing it if we didn't have someone, and I was a little nervous about that because I'm the exchequer. So,
Yeah, and there are other exchequers who feel that same way. And if you can definitely find a gate coordinator, that takes a little bit of the stress off of the branch treasurer
Yeah.
to run that gate. And I think that's why in some ways there are certain rules, like, the adult member having to sit there with, there are certain rules like that, but there are other things that are a little bit more flexible in how gates run. And because each group is different and they have to manage the logistics of their events a little bit differently. And even a small event, a group doing a small event is even different from that same group doing a larger event.
Yeah.
Say hosting a kingdom event. Your logistics don't not only change because of the group, but they also change because of the event. And so having that flexibility to have, the guidelines that you must comply with when running the gate, no funds being taken out of the gate box, the adult over the age of 18, those things. As long as you meet those, it gives you a little bit of flexibility to handle gate for the specific needs of that event.
right. And we can also make up our own policies as far as gates is concerned, long
Yeah.
as we follow the kingdom stuff.
Correct.
We can make
It's
up
just like,
tougher
it's-
policies, just not lower.
right. It's just like with, but a branch financial policy, you can make your financial policy more restrictive because of course kingdom is going to be written at a broader level and society at an even broader level. So if you want to put things within your financial policy in regards to how your gate is run at your events, because that's what everybody feels comfortable with, you can certainly do that as long as it doesn't contradict any of the guidelines or regulation policies put into place at the kingdom level. As long as it doesn't contradict any of those, you can definitely define it a little bit more on how you want to run your gate.
I just, if I don't see the thing to raise your hand, I'm sorry.
No problem.
So my understanding then now is that you do not have had to have the gate class to sit at the gate, or do not necessarily have, is that right?
Correct. You, to just sit a gate shift at gate, you do not, if there's no requirement to attend a gate class. It's
Okay,
kind of a best practice
yeah,
to attend either a local gate class run by a local person, or attend a gate class at a round table, or a gate class and another thing. It's just mainly to familiarize people who may not have set gate, the forms that are used, what's expected, what do they need to look for when they're at gate, that kind of thing. So it's not a requirement. Like we have other requirements, for officers to be an officer to be warranted. There are certain requirements of classes, but a gate class is not required to sit a gate shift. And that's really, I think, what the more local gate classes need to be, is just assisting a gate shift worker in knowing the functions that occur at gate. Does that answer your question, I hope? Awesome. So Fastrada, you have your hand raised?
Yes, ma'am. Just
All
a
right.
question real quick to clarify. Persons who have to sign in, is there an age cutoff? Is it under 2, doesn't have to, or what, or everybody has to be signed in?
I believe everyone that's on site has to be signed in. I've not heard of any age limitation. The only time I've heard a discussion about age is in relation to fees, site fees, if there's a structure for minors, youth, etc. It's my understanding that anybody on site needs to be signed in.
Okay,
And I think
That
that's
makes
more kind of, I think that's more kind of a liability safety thing, is making sure that everybody that's on that site is accounted for in case of any kind of emergencies. Good question, though. So, well, if you think of any other questions, you're always welcome to email me. If I don't know the answers, I will find out. I'll read through policies, or I will shoot an email to my upline. So again, if you have any questions that I can't answer, I will be more than happy to shoot an email to Bonnie.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you everybody for attending, and we will try and get this posted somewhere for those that couldn't attend, or for those of you who want, a second dose of punishment and want to rewatch. So good night, everyone, and hopefully I'll see you soon at events.